A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to Thursday's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Evangelical, your host. Tonight on the show, we are welcoming back Bishop Lukas Katenda of the Reformed Evangelical Church, or Anglican Church rather, in Namibia. He is one of the 10 authors of an open letter this week that is calling for for President Hage Geingob and Professor Joseph Diescho to reconcile amid continued tension between the two of them. Bishop, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for welcoming me back.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. So, if you can give us a perspective and some sort of background to what led to this open letter.
Yeah, thank you very much for your kind invitation and for the question. I hope all of us know the background to the place and status of Professor Diescho in body politics in academics. He has been, for a longer time, been outside of the country. In recent years, he has been working at the University of South Africa as a director there for international relations. But then, to the credit of the government, there was a provision made for him to come and to make his contribution to the building up of Namibia as a director of NIPAM, or the executive director of NIPAM. And for some reasons, things didn't go either as they were planned, or things changed, and as a result, he was removed from NIPAM, and from there, their relationship between him and His Excellency has not been good in some ways into public sphere. And people resented some of the pronouncements that were made either by the president or by Professor Diescho in retaliation, or rather in response to what has happened. Myself, from pastoral point of view, when the professor came to work at NIPAM, as you know, he's a respectful man in terms of church, being a good Catholic. He visited some of us here in Windhoek on an individual level, that I'm back at home, I'm happy to be at home, and so on. I remember asking him rhetorically, or rather sarcastically, whether he thought his existence will not be challenged in one way or another. But his response was that it was good to be at home. It was good to make the little contributions that I could make to the building up of the Namibian nation. And when things went sour as they did, we were able, myself and my friend Pastor Laban, we were able to sit with him to hear his side, because things were going on in the papers. The office was closed, he was locked outside, the police was sent there. All this was in the papers. So we were able to sit with him, and told us what his side of the story was. We couldn't do nothing. We just prayed for him and wished him good luck in his future endeavors. And later on, we heard he got a job at the University of Bonn in Germany. And then things were going on between now him and the head of state. And at one point, I remember authoring something rather sarcastically but serious, that it seems we have what we call Dieschophobia. We must not have such a doctrine in Namibia. So as a result, some people started then to call us,
Yeah.
Especially the church fraternity, why don't you facilitate reconciliation and so on. I was a bit reluctant for some reasons, but then some people again came up and said maybe we need to issue a public sort of open letter to him and to the head of state that they may maybe find a way to reconcile.
Yeah. Thank you for that elaborate background, Bishop Katenda. What I have observed, obviously, is that every time that President Geingob commented about Professor Diescho was because somebody raised the question. Whether in Parliament, I remember the one time it was during the town hall meetings in Rundu or something like that. And obviously, he then responds. It's not like he initiates attacks against Professor Diescho, but I suppose his choice of words in those responses, of course, calling the man a failure and whatnot, has led to that. But the president has so many people that he's not on good terms with, whether it's other public intellectuals or opposition opponents, or even within the ruling party, SWAPO itself. There are people who do not see eye to eye with the president, and we haven't seen anyone calling for a reconciliation between those other people with the president. What makes this particular case special?
This is, it's not that it is a special case over the others, only that this is the most prominent one that we see happening. You remember in the Kavango, in the Rundu, you are in the heart of the Kavango, where Professor Diescho hails from. And the question was asked deliberately. It's like people asking Jesus the question. This woman was caught in adultery, and the law of Moses tells us we must stone such women. Can you see that it's a twist of the verse in Deuteronomy? It is not to stone women, it is to stone adulterers, both the men and the woman. So Jesus knew how to respond to these things. If you have not committed any sin, you must be the first person to throw the stone. So in such a way, he diffuses the tension. So in this case, we thought that this tearing into someone and vandalizing his rights, he is not there to defend himself as it is provided in the Constitution. One would really think, why is it going this way? We are not saying people must not have opinions about each other, especially public figures and leaders. But in terms of making serious statements, you don't have a home, you don't have a what, you don't stay here, this is what has happened. When will we get the view of the professor? Obviously, he will respond and will also say, who is a failure? Is it the one who did this and who did this and who did this? Or is it the one who did this and who did this? It's not a good way of addressing elders. They are a brother and a sister. They are rather an older brother and a younger brother. And a leader, a president for that matter, and a subject. So we thought specifically on those two, can there be a reconciliation between the two of them? And maybe that could be a basis for other reconciliation processes that may involve other people as well. Who knows?
Do you think, Bishop, that or do we recognize that when you are in a public sphere, you are a public figure yourself, and when you come to a platform like this, even people who will be watching this interview, some of them will have the not so flattering opinions about what you're saying, for example. But it's something that you've prepared yourself for, to say, I put myself in this position in order to be able to absorb the heat that comes with this. In the case of Professor Diescho, is he, in your observation, as somebody that you interact with, is he a man that is able to absorb criticism? Because he's a public intellectual, and as a head of NIPA most of that time, once you are in that position, you ought to be scrutinized. Is it therefore not, doesn't it come with the territory that when you are in that position, that you'll be subjected to scrutiny, and therefore you just live with it?
Yeah, I think, in my view, he's a Democrat, and in many ways he is a liberal, whether that's by choice or by academic conversion. I don't think, in my view, he has in his mind an idea that people must not criticize him. But then the existence of a person is another thing to be criticized, is another thing to exist and to live. So when you think your existence is challenged, your ability to live is challenged to the point of being downgraded or reduced almost to nothing, you are likely going to respond in any way. And I think it is not just a matter of being criticized for him, it is a matter of feeling his existence is challenged to the core. And therefore he needs to respond. So far, as I said, I have sat with him when he was removed from NIPAM. I think in the jurisprudence sort of ideology, I would be able to understand him because I listen to him. And he tells me, this is how I came about, this is what has happened, this is what has happened, this is what has happened, till this point. So I was wondering, what is really the matter now? Okay. So is it legal? Is there a legal thing, or is it mere opinions? When you say the person has failed, for instance, you are free to say that. But in which way? In which way? Tell me the job description. From the nursing point of view that I have been, we have what we call the scope of practice. When you come in the nursing unit, this is what you must do. If you don't do it, people will not just say you are not delivering. They will say you're supposed to do A, you didn't do it. Instead, you did that. You are incompetent, or you are just a failure. So in my view, you could have an opinion, but the existence of the person and the environment for him. And how many failures do we have in Namibia? We have quite a number, and we don't send them away. So it's not, in my view, the term failure is not ringing well, because many people have failed in many ways. And if I enumerate how people have failed, even speaking in general, I will be afraid, because people will say, oh, you are referring to so and so. But I have seen failures all over the place. And if we attack each other on failure, on opinions that you have failed, I think nobody is going to pass the test.
We will talk about the failure part in the second part of the show. To my viewers, I think it's important just for them to understand that This open letter was authored by 10 people. That is Bishop Katenda, who's with me in the studio, Honorable Paulus Mbangu, who is a member of Parliament in the National Council. It's Pastor Laban Mashekele, Renani Musutwa, Dr. Elijah Ngurare, Marius Kudumo, Dr. Ndumba Kamwanya, Sheripo Musutwa, and Severin Haingura. In fact, there is also Priscilla Majila. Those are the 10 authors of that public statement. We return for second half. We continue with Bishop Katenda. Now, on the subject of failure, the context has always been that the president was actually referring to Professor Diescho's time at NIPAM. Professor Diescho is on public record stating that he has never failed. He has done his job. He's fulfilled his duties there. So the one thing that usually lacks from this conversation around the Diescho discourse, if I can call it that way, is his time at NIPAM. There was an audit, a forensic audit investigation conducted, I think, by Ernst & Young at NIPAM, which made some damning findings against the professor. But when people talk about this Diescho issue, nobody talks about that. The narrative is that he was hounded out of his job because he's a critic of the Geingob administration. How do we balance these two views and just somehow go for one and ignore the other?
In my earlier statement I made when this failure thing was mentioned, I said in Namibia we believe in the rule of law, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone who has transgressed must be brought before the face of justice.
Yeah.
If indeed the professor has stolen something or misappropriated some money or applied some favoritism or corruption or whatever, whoever has that evidence, I think, should bring it before the relevant authorities and then prosecute the gentleman. That, my friend, we are not hating you. You have committed a crime.
Yeah.
That is another thing. In the absence of that, all I hear is opinions. He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. And I keep on saying, who does everything in this country?
Yeah.
We all are gifted differently. You could be a good academic, but you may not necessarily be a business administrator. You may be a good business administrator, but you may not be a good teacher. There are some people who have everything in one pot. And we say, thank God they have it. But the environment, especially from the leadership point of view, must be conducive that even failures then, if there are failures, can exist. Because we have failures everywhere, as I have mentioned, and I do not want to be mean to anybody, but we have failures all over the place. I have no time to say that today, but if you pressure me some other time, I will say I have seen people failing socially, economically, politically, academically. I have seen it individually. I have seen people failing. But are they hounded? Are they spoken about? So these are the things we are. And by the way, I am not here to defend the professor, as much as I should say the head of state, the president is the head of state, and we owe him cooperation and respect. At the same time, all the Namibians must have opportunity and a platform to exist. Leadership must make it possible even for a fool to exist and live in Namibia.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
The one thing then in that regard, Bishop Katenda, is what is the ideal way for the president? Because you see, one of the issues that have been raised is to say, look, the president as the occupant of the highest office in the land should not reduce himself to that level of castigating, like you said, your children in the Namibian house. That there ought to be a level of sophistication in how you address issues like that. What is the most ideal way to deal with that question if you as president are being actually, at every opportunity that people get, they subject you to that question and say, oh, we have a professor abroad, why is the situation like that? I mean, what do you say? And especially when you are being accused of being responsible for why he's abroad.
Well, I in the first place, I must say to you that the political leadership is to make the environment conducive for the Namibians to work here, for the Namibians to stay here. And when they go out, it should be by their own choice.
Yeah.
Not that they were forced either by unemployment or by poverty or by purging or by being haunted or by being blocked somewhere that you may not get a job and so on. It is not the president's job to give job to people. He may appoint certain people for certain responsibilities, but his main responsibility is to make sure the ground, the environment is peaceful, is democratic, and people with qualities can get a job, and they can disagree with whoever and still live here. But when a person says, I have gone out because I think I am haunted, I'm purged, somewhere, somehow, I think the president must revisit his operations and say, how did it happen that we have people leaving this country and they are going with our name that we are haunting them or whatever. The environment must be conducive that everybody can exist, even if they disagree with us. It is not, I repeat, it is not the president's responsibility to find a job for me or for whoever. It's for the political leadership is just to level the ground and all of us can walk.
Why is it important for our country, and I'm asking this in a rhetorical sense, really, it's not that I do not know, but I want to pick your brain on why a person of the caliber of Dr. Diescho should be here. Because he I mean, there's no question at all about his intellectual sharpness, and I suppose, and we need that here. Why is it important to have our people of that, to protect those kind of people, not in a favorable way, but just to make sure that they, like you say, they have space to live?
In the first place, they were born here, and they have no other place to call home. And if you push me out of Namibia, you have really dropped me in the deep of the sea. I would like to stay at home. And if I have one day to live, I have to do so by my own accord. And what is the intellectual property of Namibia? It is citizens, it is people. And if people who should be your intellectual property, who should be making contributions, are making contribution elsewhere. And this is not unique to Namibia, by the way. Quite a number of our intellectual people in Africa are living in America and in Europe, and, because they cannot exist at home. We need all the Namibians to be on the table. But when they decide to go somewhere on their own, that's another story. But when the person like him feels that I am purged, is when we say, okay, in your case with the head of state, we do not want, no, you have done this, you have done that. As I say, it is the president of the republic, properly elected, properly commissioned. We owe him cooperation, if you like, honor and respect. But at the same time, we are looking up to him for leadership. That no, this can't be. We are a small population. This can't be. If you are in Europe because you think we don't want you, then you are lying. Here opportunities are there. Unless we agree that there is no opportunity for a person, maybe of his caliber. I don't know how we can come to that conclusion then. But I think even if even some people who you could just think in your mind, this person doesn't fit to work there, but they are working anyway. Do you think the professor can't do anything? I think he could.
Bishop, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is Bishop Lukas Katenda. He's one of the 10 authors of an open letter this week that called for a reconciliation between President Hage Geingob and Professor Joseph Diescho. Thank you for watching.